Hello and welcome to third grade. I'm your teacher, Mr. Ritenour, and today is Wednesday, April 1st, which means it is Carson's birthday. So happy birthday to you, buddy. Whenever we get back to school, I'll be sure to give you your birthday wax. All right, so I thought we'd kick off today with this little gem that I found. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Oh man, every time I see that video, I have to laugh. All right. Well, if that doesn't put you in the mood for learning, I don't know what will. So let's start, as always, with some common sense. Lesson 32. All right, gentlemen, always take your hat off when entering a school, restaurant, church, or other important place. Now, Walmart, small business, sporting venues, fast food chains like McDonald's, Burger King, you can wear your hat in there. But anywhere else that's a little more fancy, like Rachel's, you're going to want to take off your hat. Church, don't wear your hat in church. Now, ladies, it's a little different. You have exceptions. If you're in a formal place and you're wearing a formal hat that goes with your outfit, like maybe like an Easter hat, then you can keep that on, ladies. But if you're wearing like a baseball cap, you would definitely want to take that off. Okay, so that's your lesson today in etiquette. I have this one. This is for you, Bobby, up here. I'm going to need you to take your hat off. Right, meow. And it's a sign of respect. All right, so that's today's lesson. Make sure you take your hat off if you're in a fancy place like a restaurant or school or church. Okay, if we're ever allowed back in those places, right? Just kidding. So today we've got three parts. Part number one, Go Math. Part number two, U.S. history, and then we're going to end with some grammar simple solutions. All right. So those of you that were excited about writing a letter, we're going to do that again tomorrow. That'll give me enough time to get everyone's address on a all-in-one form that I can send out to you. So anyway, those are the big three we're going to focus on. So please pause the video right now and get your Go Math book out and ready to go with a pencil. All right, so we're on lesson 12.2, which is page 703. Okay, so last math lesson, we learned a couple major vocab words. So I'm just going to write them in the corner here for a review. The first one we talked about is called a plane shape. So a plane shape is another name for a 2D shape. So rectangles, your circles, your triangles. All right, that's a plane shape because it's two-dimensional. We also talked about this right here. No, that's not a mole or a freckle. That is called math a point. If you connect 2 points, you've got what we call a line segment. So these are called endpoints. if you've got arrows on both sides, it's simply called a line. And if you have a point and then an arrow, you're like a beautiful ray of sunshine. It's called a ray. Okay, so I think on your quiz I asked you a question about this shape right here. I said how many line segments does it have? Well, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was the correct answer. What do we call a six-sided shape? Well, that is a hexagon. Number 6 has an X in it, just like hex. All right, and the last thing that we talked about is open versus closed. So this shape is closed, but let me draw an open shape. What if I had like a glass, a cup of water? That would be open. Okay, here's the opening right here. All right, boys and girls, so that was a review of last week. Let's build upon that, okay? Because everything that we're learning, all this geometry stuff, it's actually really useful. We use it as adults all the time. So where two lines meet, we call that a vertex, all right? It forms an angle. So I'm just going to read this up here. An angle, I'm going to underline that, is formed by two rays that share an endpoint. So look at the drawing. You've got one ray, and it shares the same point and goes out over here. So that's an angle. Now the shared endpoint is called a vertex. So you can see it's vertex and it draws an arrow. So that point is the vertex. If you've got more than one, so you've got vertices. So you've got how many vertices are in that triangle? 1, 2, 3. That's a lot of stuff to remember. So we're going to keep using those words over and over so that they stick. All right, so let's go down here and look at this. Jason drew this shape on dotted paper. Way to go, Jason. Look at the angles in the shape that Jason drew. How can you describe the angles? Well, the angles have different descriptions. The most important one to remember today is called a right angle. A right angle is where two lines come together and form a perfect corner. So if you look up here at Jason's shape, these lines come together right here. At that point, that's called a vertex, and they form a perfect right angle. So down here, and I apologize, this is a hard lesson to teach on a video. I wish I could just show you. But down here it says this mark means a right angle. It's that little box, that little blue box. A right angle forms a square corner. That's a good way of thinking about it. So anywhere, I'm going to draw a line. Anywhere that forms a square corner like that, that's a right angle. As soon as that doesn't become square, it becomes less than a right angle. Right? So these are all less than right angles. We call those acute. They're little, they're cute, they're acute. And then if you have a right angle and you make it bigger, it's fat, it's obese. We call that obtuse. Right, so let's just stick right here. I've got a perfect square corner. I show that with a box right here. That means it is right. Another name for a right angle, 90 degrees. Okay, now look at my green, inside my green circle, I've got an example of an angle that is less than a right angle. We call that, and I want you to write this. We call that an acute angle. And then look at my red, inside my red circle, we've got an angle that is bigger than 90 degrees. We call that an obtuse angle. All right, so quick review. Look at Jason's shape. Two angles are blank angles. So, oh, right here. We've got 1, 2. What are those squares called? Nice, right. Good job. They are right angles. Blank angle is, oh, okay. One angle is less than a right angle, and one angle is more than a right angle. Okay, so let's move on to the next page. Activity. Well, we can't really do an activity unless you have like a pipe cleaner at home. Maybe you have pipe cleaners, or maybe you do have straws at home. You could do this activity on your own, but for right now, we're just gonna move on. Okay, so how many angles are in this triangle right here? Let's find out. We've got 1, 2, 3 different angles. Now think about it. What's that shape called? Say it out loud. Say it even louder. Say it 5 times fast. Triangle, 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 triangle. The word triangle gives it away. It's got angle in it. How many? Tri. Well, what does tri mean? Think about a tricycle or a triceratops. It means 3. Right. Use the corner of a sheet of paper to tell whether the angle is a right angle, less than. Okay, we don't need to use the corner of a sheet of paper. All right. All we need to do is use our eyes. So number 2, I mean, is that angle a right angle? Does it have a little box next to it? No. So right angle, it is not. Is it less than? Does it look smaller? So if here's a right angle, it would have to be smaller than that. No, it's not. So it's not acute. Is it bigger than a right angle? It's bigger than a square. So it is what we call an obtuse, or greater than a right angle. So let's be more mathematical than this Go Math book, and let's write what it's actually called. Rather than greater than, I want you to write obtuse. All right, number 3. Let's ask ourselves those questions again that we did before. So, is it a right angle? Well, no, it's not. Why? Well, because it doesn't have a square. It needs to have something that looks like that. Okay, so it is not a right angle. Is it smaller than a right angle? Yeah, it is, right? It's smaller than a right angle. I'm going to use my yellow over top of it to show you what a right angle would look like. That would be a right angle. It is actually smaller than a right angle, which means it is acute. I like to think smaller than cute, right? Little is usually cute. Okay, let's move on to number 4. We are looking at that box in the corner. Is it a box? Yes, which means it's a perfect right angle. Okay. So, quick quiz question. Who remembers how many degrees is a right angle? makes 90 degrees. Good job. Next page. This will help us really reinforce what we've been doing. All right, so write how many of each type of angle the shape has. So how many right angles? Look for those square boxes in the corners. So we've got 1, 2, 3. So this one has 3 right. How many less than are right? Well, look at I'm going to use red here. We've got 1 and 2 left over. Are those smaller than, or less than, or greater than? They're both at the same angle, and they're both bigger or greater than. So there are 0 acute angles, and there are 1, 2 greater than, which we call obtuse angles. Number 6, we're looking at that shape. Give yourself a pat on the back if you know that that shape is called a trapezoid. Yeah, it's called a trapezoid. How many right angles does that trapezoid have? Well, how many boxes do you see? Yeah, I don't see any either, so the answer is 0. How about less than right angles? Well, are there any angles? We know that there's 4 angles, right? Because it's a 4-sided shape. So let's look at this top one real quick. Is that less than? Here's what it would look like if it was a right angle. To me, that doesn't look less than, it looks what? Yeah, it looks greater than. So we know there's at least 1 greater than. How about over here? That angle is the exact same as the other side, right? This is what it would look like if it was a right angle, and it also looks greater than. How about down here? In this bottom left corner, that's that angle. Here's what it would look like if it was a right angle. That's looking less than to me. See the blue? The blue looks smaller than the red. And it should be the same on this side because they're the exact same. So I'm just going to draw it over top here. This is what a right angle would look like. And the blue looks less than. So overall here, I've got this angle. The blue is definitely bigger. The blue is bigger. So we've got 2 greater thans. And then the bottom ones, we've got less than and less than. So 2 less thans. So a trapezoid has 0 right angles. That's what makes it a trapezoid. Number 7. Oof, we needed this one. This is tough. Number 7 definitely gave us the break that we deserved because this one is by far the easiest. That's a square, right? It's got 4 equal sides, 4 right angles. And every single angle, like I just said, has a box. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, and 0. I like that one. Okay, so scrolling down here. On your own, use the corner, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. I want you, right now, I want you to either write right, acute, or obtuse. That's what I want you to do. I don't want you to write less than or greater than because that is not, that's not using your math words. Less than is acute. More than is obtuse. So letter number 8, we've got this top left corner. So obviously it's not a right angle. This would be a right angle. No, it's not. It's smaller than a right angle. It's a less than. So which word means less than right? Acute or obtuse? What do you think? I agree. It is little. It is acute. Alright, number 9. Look at that. It's that little square, which means it is a... What do you think, Jasper? Nice. Right angle. Okay, now, number 10. That's a 5-sided shape called a good pentagon. If this angle was a right angle, it would have a little square on it. Is that bigger than or smaller than a right angle? Yeah, it's bigger. So what word do we call bigger angles? What do you think, Evan? Obtuse. Good job. Obtuse. Okay, number 11. How many right angles do I have? Well, how many squares do I have? What do you think there, London? Yeah, I got this one right here. 1. How many less than a right or acute angles do I have? Well, that one is another angle and that one's another angle. So those two are both the same. They're just flip-flopped. All right. What do you think, Sophie? Are those less than or greater than? Very good. They're less than. They're acute. So we have no obtuse. 0. Number 12 is a rectangle. How many right angles does it have? Bobby? 1, 2, 3, 4 right angles. I have no other angles left, so I've got 0 and 0. Sorry, that looks like an 8. 0 and 0. Good job, Bobby. All right, Lucas, you're up. How many right angles do you see, Lucas, in number 13? Good, 1, 2. How about less than right? There's one down here. That one is definitely less than right. We call that acute. And Lucas, last one. What's this right here? That angle is a obtuse, right? 1 in the greater than obtuse side. Describe the types of angles formed when you divide a circle into 4 equal parts. Well, let's draw a circle. Split it into 4 equal parts. Wow. What kind of angles do we have? We've got 4 perfect 90-degree angles, which we call what? Yeah. Right angles. Now, what do you get whenever you add 90 4 times? Well, if you've ever done any tricks on a skateboard or on skis or anything like that, whenever you do a complete circle, what do we call that? We say, wow, you just did a 360. Well, guess what? That's a math word. 360 means 360 degrees. So if you started here and you went 90 degrees, 90 degrees, now you're at 180. 90, they are at 270. A full circle is 360 degrees. That's how we get that word 360, all right? Because you've got 4 right angles, 90, 180, 270, 360. A clock, 360 degrees. All circles. Okay, next page. Holly drew the 4 shapes below. Which shape does not have a right angle? Well, we don't have the boxes this time to help us, so we're just going to have to do our best. Where do we see perfect square corners? I see one right there, so Q is definitely not right. I see a bunch in R. There's one in S. T, look at T. This must be our answer. That is obtuse right here. Same with that one. And that looks tinier to me than a square, so that's called an acute. So the answer is T. Alright, so we're not even going to write anything in those boxes. We're just going to move on to number 16. Actually, we'll answer it right at the bottom. So shape T does not have a right angle. Okay? Alright, so we're going to keep moving. Number 16, circle a number or word from each box to complete the sentence to describe all the angles in this shape. There are blank right angles. Let's see, where did I leave off? Alright, it's your turn, Patina. How many right angles do you see? 2, 3, or 4. What do you think? Maybe you can say it in Espanol. Dos. Muy bien, chica. 1, 2. Right angles. How many angles do we have left? Well, look at my yellow box. Cody, you're up. I've got this one, this one, this one, and this one. All 4 are what, Cody? Are they smaller, less than, or are they bigger, greater than? Yeah, they're greater than. Alright. I'm going to write obtuse below that. Good practice. Greater than means obtuse. Good work, kids. Alright, practice time. So, practice number 1. Use the corner, blah, blah, blah. We need to say right angle. Cross off that and write acute or obtuse. So right, acute, or obtuse. You tell me. Number 1, that is an acute angle because it's small. Number 2, do you see those boxes? We should automatically know that is a what? Fish. Nice. A right angle. And Doobie, you're up. That angle right there looks what? It definitely looks obtuse to me. It is a fat angle, bigger than 90. That would be a right angle, and it's definitely bigger. Number 4, how many types, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so we left off with Doobie. Emily, you're up. What do you think? Number 4, how many right angles do you see? Good work, Popovich. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that means how many, Emily, are less than? 0 and 0. Willow, you're up. How many right angles do you see? Good, Willow. None, right? There are 0 right angles. How about less than? I agree, Willow. There are no acute angles, which means all these angles that are left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're all bigger than a right angle. We call those obtuse. Okay, Michael, you're up. How many right angles do you see, Mike? 1, 2. How about less than? Less than. Yeah, I don't see any less than either, because that angle, that angle, that angle, and that angle are all bigger than 90 degrees, which makes them obtuse. Good work, Michael. Alright, birthday boy, you're up. So, Carson, if you have a square piece of art paper and you cut across it from one corner to the opposite corner to make 2 pieces. So let me draw that. Here's your piece of, let me undo, it needs to be square. Sorry, birthday boy. So you got a square piece of paper, right? It says he cuts from one corner to the opposite corner to make 2 pieces. So here's what you did, Carson. You did that. What's the total number of sides and angles in both of the new shapes? So you've got 2 new shapes that look a lot should have used that. That look a lot like triangles, right? You've got one triangle up top, and then you've got another triangle at the bottom, right, Carson? Sorry, I'm playing around here. So this triangle, you've got 1, 2, 3 sides, and the other triangle, obviously, you have 1, 2, 3 sides, and both of them have 1, 2, 3 angles. So altogether, you've got 6 sides, 6 angles. And number 8, we're not going to do. Okay. All right. So now I want you to turn that page over, and I want you to do the back on your own. Whenever you're all done, unpause this video, and you can check your answers, okay? Don't cheat. Do your best. If you get one wrong, no big deal, but pause the video now and do that on your own before cheating. Just kidding. Before looking at the answers. Okay, so hopefully numbers on number 1, instead of writing greater than or less than, hopefully you put either obtuse or acute. If not, no big deal. I put both in mine. So here are the answers. Good luck. All right, so I'm not going to leave those up for much longer. If you need more time to check yours, please pause the video because we're moving on to our next topic. Okay, so please take a break if you need it. We've been working hard for about 30 to 40 minutes now, so take a break. Come back whenever you're ready. I'm gonna start part 2, U.S. history. Okay, so all you need for the next section for U.S. history is you just need your eyes and ears. Unless you feel like taking notes, you're more than welcome to do that. Personally, I like taking notes too sometimes. It helps me remember things. But there's not going to be, there's not like anything that you have to turn in for this part, you know, like there's nothing that you need to keep track of. This is all just stuff that we're learning for life, not for any test or anything like that. Although there will be a question, a U.S. history question in your Google form after we're all done with the video. So anyway, I'm going to put myself in the corner and we're going to continue our journey through U.S. history. All right, so this looks familiar for those of you that tuned in last week. We talked about that time period after and even part of the Civil War called the Industrial Revolution. Now, the Industrial Revolution is just a big fancy name for the time of inventions. So you've got all kinds of different inventions coming out at this time, like the steamboat and the train and the light bulb, the airplane, the car, telephones. Huge time period in U.S. history for what we call innovation. That means getting better. All right, so a lot of the cities look like this. You've got factories, okay, the hustle and bustle of the city. And at this same time of Industrial Revolution, you've got another big thing happening in the United States. So that brings us to today's lesson. For those of you that like movies, you like playing games, you've probably heard of Cowboys and Indians. There's a lot of Western movies like Clint Eastwood and John Wayne, famous actors in these Wild West movies. Well, today's U.S. history lesson is all about that time period. Okay, from about 1860, so right at about the beginning of the Civil War, till 1890, so almost the 20th century. Um, while the Industrial Revolution's happening in the cities, out west, you've truly got the wild, wild west. You've got cowboys fighting Indians, just like the games that I always played as a kid, where you'd have cowboy on with a gun chasing around an Indian with a bow and arrow. All right, that's the time period we're talking about in U.S. history. It's a very violent time, but it also it's very romanticized. That word means it's very popular, and the idea of the cowboy and the Indian fighting each other. Um, we kind of have pictures in our heads of what that looks like, and it didn't always look like that, like they say in the movies. So please follow along with me here. Your brother or sister might think you're crazy if you're reading out loud, but that's okay because I'm reading out loud too. So today's lesson 29 is called Custer and Wounded Knee. Custer is a person, Wounded Knee is a battle. So let's start with the word before at the beginning. All right, you ready? Before we reach the 20th century, what years are the 20th century? You'd think they're the 2000s, but they're actually not. They are the 1900s. So we're not quite to the year 1900 yet. It is important to understand the ongoing conflict between the American settlers and the Native American Indians. So, what does the word conflict mean? Let's see. Wiley, you're up. A conflict is like if you and JR, you get into a big conflict, you get into a fight, right? It's a problem between American settlers, so those are people moving out west, and the Native American Indians, all right? The Indians already lived there. So you've got the Indians who are trying to defend their land, and then you've got on the other side the settlers who are trying to take their land. So let's keep reading. Manifest blank brought thousands of settlers to the West. So you might remember from earlier in U.S. history, there's this idea that the United States should settle from sea to shining sea. We called that our manifest destiny. The land they were building on was home to native tribes who had already lived there for thousands of years. Imagine strangers come into your house without permission, eat all your food, break your toys, kill your pets, and then threaten to kill you if you don't leave. This is exactly what was happening on the great blank of our nation. Remember America's breadbasket, the middle part of the country, the Great Plains. As more Americans headed west, the room for Native Americans shrunk. Most Indian tribes were peaceful, but the stereotype is what other people think about you before they even meet you. Just by looking at someone, you might think something about them, all right, without actually knowing who they are. So back to our reading. The stereotype was a race of bloody savages who would cut off your scalp and drink your blood. This awful prejudice fueled the American settlers to kill the Indians without remorse. All that means is they were killing the Native Americans without feeling bad about it. The bow and arrow was no match for the industrial blanks improved rifles and pistols. We just talked about it yesterday, or last week. The Industrial Revolution. Good. So the Industrial Revolution brought about those machine guns and really good weapons. Not really fair, right, up against the bow and arrow. The period of time between 1860 and 1890 was known as the Indian Wars because the fighting between Indians and settlers out west. There were many battles, but two stick out more than the rest. Both are great tragedies in US history and could have been avoided with better diplomacy. Diplomacy means communication between nations. All right, so there's tons of battles between Americans and Indians. All right, but I'm going to talk about two that are they probably are the most famous, okay? First, let's read it. The Battle of Little Bighorn is famous because of Lieutenant, that's what the LT stands for, Colonel, that's another title, Custer's Last Stand. So Custer's Last Stand. Custer was an American military leader. He served during the Civil War, and he's most famous for this last stand. In the greatest victory for Native Americans, Chief Sitting Bull, that was the name of the Indian chief, surrounds Custer and his troops, killing them all. All right, so we're going to pause there and we're going to watch a video of that. I recommend, if you've ever been to Montana, there's actually a whole national park called Custer National Park, and it's got the largest population of buffalo on it, and you can see the Little Bighorn where the battle took place. They have everywhere a soldier died or an Indian died, they actually have a grave. But it was definitely a bloody battle. Before we watch the video, I'll quickly recap here. You've got the United States Army. You've got Custer leading a group of other settlers, all right, Army men, and you've got a whole bunch of Native Americans that have gathered together underneath Chief Sitting Bull. And Custer decides to split up from his men with a small company of soldiers, and he doesn't realize that the Native Americans are gathering just a little bit away from him in huge numbers, and Custer ignores the advice that he's given, and he decides not to listen, and it costs him dearly. It costs him and all his troops their lives, because Sitting Bull and the other Native Americans surprise ambushed him. It was a very famous battle because the American army lost so badly. I think we have an ad here.
Balancing comfort and trying to save energy can be difficult. The T9 Smart Thermostat can help with its smart room sensors that have a super long range.
It's one of the most crushing defeats in American history. Custer's Last Stand. June 25th, 1876. Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer and over 600 troopers of the 7th United States Cavalry arrive in the Little Bighorn Valley of southern Montana. The cavalry has come to subdue a village of defiant Indians. Thousands of Sioux and Cheyenne under the leadership of the great holy man, Sitting Bull. For a century, the United States has pushed the frontier west, herding tribe after tribe onto agencies or reservations. The Sioux and the Cheyenne don't want to give up their land on the northern plains. These last defiant Indians gather into a colossal wandering village. In the spring of 1876, the village arrives on the plains of Montana.
The village was always on the move. They knew the army was out after them. And to the United States Army, to capture a fleeing village was an impossible task.
Custer follows Sitting Bull's path west across the Wolf Mountains. On the other side, the Indian village stands on the banks of a slender river. The Indians call it the greasy grass. The Army calls it the Little Bighorn. On the morning of June 25th, Custer and his troops arrive in a treacherous landscape carved up into hidden channels and ravines. Perfect cover for fighters who know its contours. Deadly for the soldiers who don't. Around noon, Custer makes what many believe is his fatal mistake. He divides his forces into 3 separate columns. Custer heads up the bluffs along the river to attack from the north. It's his first clear look at the size of the village. He realizes he doesn't have enough troops to do the job. He sends a rider south with a note calling for more men and more ammo.
It's important to keep in mind that no one had any idea of how many Indians there would be. They simply had no idea.
Indians are surrounding Colonel George Armstrong Custer and his battalion. Survivors are struggling to join up with other troopers on nearby high ground. A spot now called Last Stand Hill.
The tables are turning for Custer. He's no longer the attacker, he's being attacked. Decides to take this high hill, which we call Last Stand Hill today. All the soldiers killed their horses to hide behind. A lot of the warriors said was they got close to this hill, they arched their arrows high into the sky, having those arrows come down behind those dead horses. They said, we rained arrows down on those men. Their shots quit coming, and we rushed up and we killed them all.
Lieutenant Colonel George Custer and over 200 of his men annihilated in a defeat that devastated America in 1876.
This battle, the Battle of the Little Bighorn, was the Plains Indians' greatest victory. This caused the government to send out more forces, more military.
Less than a year after the battle, Sitting Bull flees to Canada and Crazy Horse surrenders in Nebraska. The Last Stand has been studied more closely than almost any military engagement in our history. Today, the battlefield still lies serene and empty, above the cottonwood trees lining the Little Bighorn River.
USS Enterprise had proven her steel at the Battle of Midway. But the Big E is about to face her greatest challenge yet. Invasion at a place called...
All right, so that was the first major battle. The Battle of the Little Bighorn, with Custer leading that, getting destroyed. The second battle kind of is the opposite. The natives, the Indians, get destroyed in this one. So read along with me here. We've got down here, second, the Wounded Knee blank. We call that massacre, when everyone on one side dies, when nobody on the other side does. It's heartbreaking because the Lakota, that's the Indian people, were not even armed when they were slaughtered by U.S. troops. They were dancing and believed the white man's bullets couldn't hurt them. Okay, so let me explain. The troops were attacking at Wounded Knee, and rather than fight, the Native Americans decided, the Lakota decided they were going to dance, and their dance was going to turn them invisible, and the troops wouldn't be able to hurt them. So if you know anything about Native American culture, there is very much a spiritual belief. They believe in animal spirits and all kinds of different things. So when the troops showed up with their guns and they started to fight, the Lakota people didn't fight back. They didn't run. They just kept dancing and dancing and dancing, and until every one of them died, even the women and the children. So this is definitely a dark stain on American history. Like I told you at the beginning of U.S. history, there are so many amazing moments in U.S. history, but it would be dishonest if I didn't share the couple that weren't so great. And this is definitely one of them. So due to time, I'm not going to show you the second video, but it was of the Native Americans doing their dance, their invisible dance. It's called the ghost dance, so they're supposed to turn into ghosts. All right, so let me quickly show you an image here of like the typical Cowboy versus Indian. That's what this whole time period is of U.S. history, all right? You've got cowboys fighting against Indians. And here's a map. Sorry, you'll be able to see it in a second. Here's a map of out west. So this is Texas. Let me get my pen. You probably can't see. This is Texas down here. And this whole area that I'm about to circle, this is like the Great Plains area, and you can see this is where there's all these battles. Everywhere you see these little swords, all right, or battles, or posts, where you see these ones, all right. It's a lot of fighting happening in the western part of the United States. Okay, so which one of these do you think is Crazy Horse? He was Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull are like the two most famous Native American leaders. Well, right off the bat, there's one that does stick out. The only one that's not Native American would be Custer. So which one do you think is Crazy Horse? Which one do you think is Sitting Bull? Well, there's a hint. Look at their position. Do you see this middle one? He is sitting. So Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. I love Native American names, right? Wouldn't that be cool to be named Crazy Horse? Must be a wild man if you're named Crazy Horse. So that's the end of our U.S. history lesson. The most important thing I want you to get out of it is that there was about 30-year time period of fighting out west called the Indian Wars, the cowboy versus Indian, that we still to this day talk about in film and movies and even play backyard games, Cowboys versus Indians. All right. So if you want to take another break, go for it. If not, we're going to switch gears and start with grammar simple solutions. So we're on lesson 107. Okay, if I can find it. Okay, here we go. Lesson 107. Match each abstract noun with its opposite. So remember, abstract is like an idea. So what's the opposite of weakness? What do you think, Jasper? Yeah, strength. Good. How about energy? What do you think there, Evan? The opposite of energy, being energetic, would be laziness. In London, if you're not generous, you might be a selfish person. Good work. This person is definitely lazy. Number 2, sometimes a sentence has many nouns with different uses. A noun can be the subject, and it can also be the object. So for example, Larry, the subject, he rides his bike. That's a noun, it is the object. So let's find all the nouns, circle subject ones and underline object ones. David threw the ball. My first noun, Sophie, right? The very first word is David. Now the subject, we remember, is the beginning of the sentence. So David is the subject, like it's a circle. What's going to be my object noun? Well, Bobby, the object noun always comes after the verb. So the verb in this case, what's David doing? Yeah, he threw the ball. Threw is my verb. Sorry, that's supposed to be a V. So which noun comes after? Is the a noun? No, it's an article. Is ball a noun? Is it a thing? Yes, it is. It is also the object of the sentence. So circle David, underline ball. Good job. Okay, Lucas. Be sure to wear your blank when you ride your bike. Speaking of, I know you're just riding your bike. Your mom told me that you were. Be sure to wear your rabbit. Good job. Just kidding. That'd be crazy. It'd be like Alice in Wonderland. Be sure to ride your helmet. Not ride your helmet. Don't ride your helmet, boys and girls. That's not smart. Ride your rabbit. Wear your helmet. Blow your trumpet. Use a conjunction to connect the words in each sentence. Patina. I'm choosing both blue blank green paint for my room. Well, I doubt that you did blue green paint for your room. Maybe you did. Good job. I'm choosing both blue and green paint for my room. Cody. Either Rick blank Nina can be the goalie. Either Rick or Nina. Good job, Cody. Okay. Add ER or EST to compare. Tree frogs are greener than bullfrogs, or tree frogs are greenest than bullfrogs. What do you think, fish? Good. They are greener. Greener. Because bullfrogs are like usually like dark colors. They're really loud. Number 6. Jacob. Some prepositions include near, past, under, until, up, with. Which one is the preposition in that first sentence? Eva climbed up the rock wall. Prepositions, they're usually direction words. So what do you think, Jacob? Good job. Up, which is one of my favorite movies, by the way. So sad. Nash looked under the table. What do you think, Popo? Nash looked under the table, which is the direction. Good job, Emily. And Willow. Selena lives near our school. Near. Well done, boys and girls. Number 7. Write the possessive pronouns below. Possessive means it belongs to you. Owning it. So my, yep, that one does. Your coat. His football. Her dress. It's bedtime. Our snack. Your television. Their pizza. So all of those are possessive pronouns. Just write them all again. Okay, Willow's up. What does the underlined word mean? Ask one of the brawny young students to help you move that desk. So what kind of student would you want to help you, Willow? Muscular, weak, or delicate? Oh wait, Willow, you just went. I'm sorry, Michael. Yeah, you would definitely want a muscular student. Right? Someone like you. Choose the correct verb. Birthday boy. The pupil, that's like a student, studies or study French in school. So the pupil, good job, studies French in school. Number 10, Wiley. Write an adjective to describe the size or shape of each noun. Which word do you want to describe the cowboy? That'd be crazy if you said wild, because that's what I was thinking of. How about monkey? Anyone? Weird. Okay, I've got this W theme in my mind. Clown. Oh my goodness. Wacky. And butterfly. Oh man. Wonderful. Oh, clearly I didn't read the directions. It says size or shape. Whoops. Oh, my bad. Just ignore that. Just leave it as it is. Next time I'll pay closer attention to the directions. It's my ADHD kicking in. I can't focus. I have to constantly be doing stuff. All right, so that is the end of our lessons today. I hope, pray that I will see all of you tonight on Google Meet at 7 o'clock. I will put the link on there so that all you have to do is click on it from Google Classroom and it should automatically take you to the Google Meet. Now remember, you need to have a webcam and a microphone to be able to see each other on that Google Meet. What else do I have? Okay, one more thing. How's the specials going? That's what the only real question that I've gotten from anyone was, what do I do about special? Well, for me, I've been just trying to do one a day. Monday I did computer, yesterday I did gym, and today I'm going to try to do music. So that's just been my goal. Sometimes they're a little bit more confusing on their classrooms than our classroom. So you have to read a little bit more, but overall, hopefully you're figuring that out. And hey, if you don't get to it, you don't get to it. It's not the end of the world. We all have to be flexible like Play-Doh during this time. Okay, so don't forget to finish this Google form now that you've watched the video and answer all the questions before you click submit. All right, I'll see you all tonight, hopefully. And I miss you. I love you. Mr. R is officially out.
Yeah! Sweetheart.